Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.
A life that has the stories to back it. A life to be proud of. It's a Winchester life.
Yeah, baby. 6-8 Western. Oh, mule deer, baby, right there.
Tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.
Just be sitting up there jacked with Pepsi.
I'm there for the pack out. You just got to pack me in.
Committed to the bow early on. Like, I love getting close and putting up.
You cover a range of stuff on here too, right? Like,
we call this the THP World Headquarters.
You know, my grandpa Roy Weatherby.
I came into like that golden little pocket where there was like 4 or 5 different bulls. Just
You're Canadian? We're doing a Canadian podcast?
My name's Douglas Bode.
I'm Robbie Denning.
Roy Candy.
And stop. So how's things, man?
Oh man, it's going good. Just crazy. Whatever today is Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, man. What's up?
Same old, man. Just trying to get rid of the winter up here in Canada. So,
jeez, how cold is it up there? I think Jen Ribbit just texted me a minute ago. She said it was something dumb, -28, but that's -28 Canada. So that's like what?
Yeah.
Degrees.
yeah, we're a little different here, and it's funny the amount of American guests we get on the show. You figure I would have that conversion table down, but I don't. Yes, folks like my dad, it's like he's got it right away. But old school. Like
what part of Canada are you guys in?
I'm in British Columbia.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So the Rivets, I believe they live. They're in Alberta. I think they're in northern Alberta.
Northern Alberta. Yeah, exactly. My wife is from just south of British Columbia, like 400 feet south of British Columbia. So,
like Washington or
Utah,
Washington. Oh yeah, right on.
Yeah, Washington. Yeah, from Sumas. So right there on the border.
Oh yeah, it is right on the border. You ever been up to like BC, Canada?
Yeah, we were bear hunting one time. I was with her dad. We were cruising through some cornfields looking for bears. He's like, "Well, you got to turn around." I was like, "Why is that?" He's like, "We'll be in Canada about 50 feet." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I didn't realize it was like this. So.
Yeah, I think it's a little more. You'd be more safe if you're hunting going into Canada than we would be hunting trying to cross into. And there's a lot of places too. Like I hunt right along the border. I'll hunt elk along there, and man, you look at like sitting there looking at your onX, and you're like, "Holy crap, I'm pretty close to the border here," because there's no flags.
Just woods. Just woods.
Exactly.
I guess they have sensors in the ground, for what I understood, or some kind of thing.
No shit. No, I didn't know that, but
I
try to make it really. Make sure that I'm really safe and on, a good couple yards away. Good, further the better.
Right.
Nothing against you guys though. Right. I just don't want to.
Do you hunt elk up there? You said.
Oh yeah.
Are there a lot of elk? I didn't know there were a lot of elk in that area, but maybe it's over east from there.
Yeah. So like I live along not too far from the border, but it's about central British Columbia. So it's a little more warm. You get into the Kootenays, there is good populations of elk. There used to be really good populations of elk. Now the thing about elk is like we say good populations, but like if you're comparing them to like Montana or Wyoming, not good. I mean, you think of a place like British Columbia, it's 4 times the size of Montana with a quarter of the elk. So not great numbers. So
right. There are elk, not a lot of elk.
Yeah, not a lot of elk. So, but it's kind of like, I mean, there's not a lot of folks up here. There's even less that hunt, right? So,
sure.
I mean, it's all relative. So down there, I think you got a lot more guys that you're competing against. We're up here. I mean, there is a lot of, elk hunters, but not comparison to down there. So,
gotcha.
But I mean, we're still pretty blessed. We get over the counter pretty much everything in British Columbia, other than pronghorn is the only real species that we can't hunt here over the counter.
Can you guys hunt grizzly bear there or no?
Sorry, grizzly bear, you can't. We used to be able to, and then
So.
when our unelected government got in,
Right.
they kind of took over. But we're in a funny stage, kind of, with all that stuff with our provincial government and our federal government. Our provincial government, they're taking away hunting opportunities left, right, and center, and our federal government is taking away all the guns. So, luckily, I'm a bow hunter. So, but still, I mean,
Yeah,
hunters got to
but
support hunters at every angle.
100%, man. That's grotesque. I mean, do you guys see the tides turning at any point?
Yeah, I mean, the government, like Trudeau, the government that's in power now, the Liberals, they're losing a lot of faith. So hopefully, Polyev and the Conservatives, they get back in and help turn things around. The problem is, like with the grizzly bear hunt, that was an emotional decision. It wasn't based on science. Like in British Columbia, there's absolutely no shortage of bears, black bears or grizzly bears. And so like a lot of these policies and decisions that are made in places like Vancouver and Victoria, which are highly dense populated areas, like lower mainland of British Columbia, there's, probably 75% of the population lives down there. And so they're making decisions for the rest of the province when they've never even been, north of Prince George or into these other rural areas where they have to actually deal with grizzly bears. I mean, it's easy to say you shouldn't hunt grizzly bears, or the grizzly bears aren't a problem when you're living in the middle of a city.
Right. Yeah. Well, and we get the same problem here in the States. It's always the same story. It's always the people, the highest density where everyone's doing the voting is rarely where I'm going to say that there's issues everywhere, but where the issues, at least about hunting and fishing, is rarely where the people that are having the loudest voice are, and they don't have to deal with it. It's easy to talk about morality when it's not your morality. It's easy to talk about situations when it's not your situation.
Yeah, exactly. And I know you guys are having, or like Colorado's having a big thing with, with the predators down there. They're trying to ban mountain lion hunting and wolf hunt, and reintroduce or introduce wolves in there. So, geez, what a mess that would be.
Yeah, I mean, you got Colorado, probably most likely your biggest state for over-the-counter elk tags that guys are going after to have a chance to hunt the West, and now you're going to decimate it.
It's funny when you think of these people who try to implement all these laws and stuff, and it's like, well, do you realize, like, are you looking at any of the science based on this? Do you know like how many wolves and how many elk? Like one elk, how many, or one cat? Do you know how many elk a mountain lion will kill? Like it's one a week. Like I've actually walked in on mountain lions taking down an elk. Right, I bumped them off their kill So
they're good at it.
Oh yeah, they're efficient, man. They're good at what they do. There's no doubt about that.
We just got done doing a lot of trapping at my farm, and I'm not like I'm not good at trapping, or that's not my thing, but I got a guy that's helping me out with it, and we're just trying to take out those predators because it's our fawn recruitment's been so poor, and our turkeys have been decimated. So we're trying to kind of clean that up, and I don't expect to see a major increase in game this year, but you got to start. Best time to start is last year.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like anything. You just slowly. It's like fitness and working out, right? You slowly chip away at it. You just keep consistent, and then
that's it.
Over time, you're going to start to notice results. So hopefully
we've caught a couple bobcats right off the rip, and then caught a couple foxes and certainly some coyotes. So I mean, big old bobcats do a pretty good bit of damage, especially with the fawn's about to drop here soon.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They just see a bobcat and they're like, well, that's too small to kill a deer. But you're like, well, it's not. They could take out
the same size.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen videos, I've never seen it personally, but of like bobcats attacking like does and stuff, smaller does, and full grown adult deer. So
yeah.
Even if they don't kill it right away, they injure it enough where it's going to die in the middle of the winter. I mean, that's the same thing, right?
Yeah, or a coyote grabs it or something else grabs it. I mean, I know there was an article years ago, a study that was done here down in Savannah River site in Georgia, and I'll get the numbers wrong, so please don't quote me, but it was like, I want to say it was like 60 something percent, and that's being a bit conservative, of the fawns that were dropped in that year had roughly a 60% mortality rate in fawns, and 80% of them were from coyotes.
Wow.
So you look and you're like, oh my gosh, like that is a wild variable that you have on your property. And if you can knock that down significantly, geez, I mean, you were going after these big bucks and want a herd structure. And you start taking out that level of wildlife every year, the little ones, boy, you've really put a dent in your population.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it's a compounding issue too. I mean, like
Yes.
deer ungulates face a lot of obstacles right now between like, human encroachment on wildlife,
Yep.
these predators, and then you got, CWDs running rampant everywhere. So, up here in like the northern part of British Columbia, you get those moose and caribou. They're dealing with like warming temperatures and ticks, stuff like that. And like think of those poor moose dying from ticks. It's like, man, what a terrible way to go.
Are they
And like
dying from literally is it a tick-borne disease or literally
no,
pulling that much blood out of them?
yeah, they just literally like I'll send you some pictures later of like what it looks like. Like there's literally, you know, most of their hair is gone in spots, and you could just see like it's just what a horrible way to die. And like these caribou
Oh,
too, with like the black flies and stuff, and like not being able to get into places where the snowpack has melted and it's not as low as it used to be. And so they
right.
have to, they're not able to get into these places because that's how they used to hide from like the black flies. But, they can't
They
get
would
away
go
from them.
high? Is that what they would do?
Well, the snowpack used to be lower. And so like
Okay.
they get like in northern British Columbia, you get swarms of black flies that you would think was like smoke in the air. And so they basically kill the caribou. So
Dang, that's terrible.
yeah, that's a bad way to go, man. Like you think these
Jeez, we
poor
need to.
animals, and then it's funny because then you get into like ethics and stuff, and then you get these groups and organizations that say, "Oh, hunting's unethical" and all this stuff. And like, man, do you know how these animals die in the wild? Like getting shot in the lungs or getting an arrow through the heart. That's the best death these animals can pray for. Either that or just go to sleep one day and never wake up. But that's very rare.
Yeah, that never happens in real life. I mean, I should say never, but yeah, when's the last time like a 9-year-old buck was just walking through the woods? He's like, well, I'm old now, and just lays down and just dies a
Yeah,
peaceful death. That
yeah,
just,
exactly. That doesn't happen.
no, it
No.
doesn't.
So
But
we don't need to get into all that intro because I mean you've been on enough of these podcasts, and I think a lot of people already know who you are, so we don't have to get into all that. One thing I am kind of interested in though is kind of like the origin story. Now I know a bit about it, but like your dad.
yeah,
If we could talk about him a little bit, maybe give him an introduction, even though he's not here, because it's very interesting. Because I know like you took over the company or started running the company. But I don't know a lot beyond that. So I'm very
sure.
interested to just see like a little bit about him because I imagine he was probably an extremely hard worker like yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
he's from a whole different breed. I mean, he's 73 years old now, but started the company in 1980. He was a physical education teacher, was always coaching weightlifting, and was a weightlifter himself, and started I think in the late 70s building Sorin playgrounds. And so we used to build kind of stuff that would be very popular now, like ergonomic green playgrounds that would kind of integrate it in with trees and rocks and things like, in that world. And that was partially because he had artistic ability and a construction ability, but also, the school districts he worked with didn't have money. So they didn't buy these, immaculate playgrounds. So he would actually help, like he would bring the kids in, which is wild. So he was a PE teacher. So he would actually teach classes that the kids would then help clear the land, which is, you could only do this crap in the 70s, right? Like they would help clear the land and chainsaw, and he'd be out there like cutting down trees and then literally building the weightlifting equipment into the trees and rolling rocks using his own vehicle, rolling these giant stones and boulders and making playground equipment off all this stuff. And that was kind of an early stage kind of deal. And so then we got more and more sophisticated. And then in 1980, he started building weightlifting equipment with Sorin equipment. So there's Sorin playground, Sorin equipment, and out of our carport, and then just self-funded. And then in 92, we changed the name to Sorinex because it was Sorin exercise equipment, and then just changed it from a more of a branding capability that just Sorinex. And so that's when that started. I was working there as a 15-year-old kid. in the shop. That was back in 91, 92. That was one of my summer jobs. And so doing all that and doing installs and deliveries throughout my high school and college career. And then in 99, I came here full time and basically just to help him. He's a single owner entrepreneur trying to make it work. I grew up around it. I was into track and field and training still. I had 2 Olympic trials that I competed in the next few years. So I was on that quest to try to build my athleticism and my athletic prowess and try to go to the Olympics. And so I was in that world. And so it was a very natural fit just to say, hey, let me come help you, Pop, and see what we can do. And kind of the rest is history to an extent. And so eventually there's a changing of the guards and then, you kind of sign on for life kind of deal.
Yeah, no doubt. So like was fitness and stuff, did your dad, did he work out? Did he train?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was a national champion power lifter. He was a Olympic lifter in the 60s and early 70s. I mean, he's trained 4 days a week at 5 o'clock from probably 1965 till 3 or 4 years ago. So he went 49 years in a row deadlifting 500 pounds or more.
Wow.
So there's some longevity. That's an understatement. Yeah. So he's the reason of the physical culture side in our company for sure.
Yeah. So what, like you said, you were like, obviously, and I know a little bit about your history, but yeah, you were trying out for the Olympics and stuff. And I believe it was it discus or hammer toss?
Hammer. Yeah. Hammer throw.
Yeah. So I guess that transition's pretty easy to get into when you already have experience. And there's the difference of like being passionate about something and just doing it because your dad's doing it.
Correct. Yeah. My dad was like one of the highest recruited discus throwers in the nation out of high school in 1968. So he came to the University of South Carolina. He was from New Jersey, came to South Carolina for full scholarship. Wasn't planning on really going to college, but he loved weightlifting, but he was good at the discus. And so one of those things that one of those pivotal moments that changed the trajectory of a life. And he got down here, asked where the weight room was. They didn't have one. That was back in the days where they said athletes shouldn't lift, you'll get muscle bound and all that type of thing. So he borrowed a car and drove back to New Jersey and picked up his own weights and brought them down and said, well, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to lift weights. So he was doing that and he was highly recruited. So he said, well, where can I put up my weights? And they gave him in the student center, they gave him in the basement of the student center for all the athlete or everyone on campus. They allowed him to build the first weight room at the University of South Carolina. And he built it as an 18-year-old freshman and was like, well, I know what I want here. And they're like, they gave him some wood and a budget, whatever. And so to think that would even fly these days is just so comical. So he built the first weight room there, as an athlete on campus. And then graduated. Then when he was in his grad school there, he taught the first weightlifting class at the university. So he kind of, in a way, he was the first really strength educator, strength coach at the university. So we've just been always involved in it since day one. He's always believed that, that physical culture and strength conditioning was constant. And so when I grew up around it, I tried throwing the discus in high school, a little bit in college. I wasn't as good at that. I kind of picked up the hammer. That was something I was kind of decent at. I wouldn't even say I was bad at. I just wasn't horrible at it. And then worked really hard. And as my body developed through the weight room, I got better and better and better. And then you kind of get shot out of the other end of college going, hey, I'm, conference record holder and All-American and, hey, maybe I should try this whole Olympic thing. And so I went after that for a few years, but that was when the passion of human performance and strength and conditioning had taken root because, the weight room is the developmental, place for the proving ground of most sports, and especially as a thrower, because there is no strategy really. There's no defender, there's no strategy. Track and field is the sport of training. So if you're faster, stronger, whatever, it will show in your sport. There's no, well, I had a bad day. I didn't catch that one ball and this guy tackled me. It's just like, hey man, you know what the job is. 7'2" circle, turn left really fast. If you're faster and stronger and more durable, it goes really far. If it doesn't, you didn't do the work. So kind of like the really direct individual accountability of that. That's most things I've ever done in my life relatively well have been individual sports or individual pursuits that required a lot of time, a lot of effort over a long period of time, sustained time, that are not generally natural things for people to do. And so my prowess has generally come from just doing it longer and not stopping. And then, 10 years after, you're pretty good at something. So
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, I love individual sports more than I love team sports. Now I played team sports, played hockey. Obviously, being here in Canada, it's kind of like a prerequisite to play hockey. But
right.
I find, like, just with this, with it's like training, running, you get out of it what you put into it. And,
Super
you could
simple.
be on a team and you could work as hard as you can. But if you're, you can inspire, you can do all you want. But if the other guys just aren't buying into it, it's only going to take you so far.
Right.
And I just
That's
love that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I love the constant. It's not what you're going to get in a month. It's what you're going to get in 34 months or 48 months.
Yes.
And I love just the daily grind, the daily chipping away at it slowly. It's an hour and a half here. It's twice a day, 7 days a week. It's, finding time for your kids, finding time for your work, and like fitting. And when can I fit it in? Well, maybe I have to get up earlier to do it. Maybe I got to go to bed a little later. But when it's really hard for people who look at things short term and they see, well, I want this in 6 months. But when, like, if you do something for 5 years and you work at it consistently, and then you finally get to that place, 4 years, you go through 4 years of getting nothing. And all of a sudden on the 5th year, it's like, boom, you got there. Like, there's no better feeling than that. There's no better feeling than knowing that you did the work. You did, you put in all your effort. Same with like hunting and chasing elk and mule deer and all this stuff. Like, the gratification you get from that is like, you just can't beat it.
You can't. You absolutely can. And it becomes a superpower when you kind of realize that I think the passion over a long period of time builds resilience. And if you have the passion for it and the resilience, then that becomes a superpower, because one day you wake up and you're pretty good at it, whether it's by whatever measure, even if it's a competition and there's against other people, you realize, oh, I'm at the top of the heap now. This is cool. And the day that I realized kind of the weird superpower of, oh, if it's a thing that takes a really long time to get good at, I'm going to be one of the best guys at it, because I'll give it a long time because I'm excited about it. And then I know the barrier of entry for most people is so high, they won't. So I just know mathematically, I'm going to be one of the better people at this, as long as I'm not worried about being good at it now. If in 5 years I'll go, yeah, I'll most likely, if I have some physical talent, I'll be probably top 10% at that, because most people won't do the 5 years. But if that's what it takes is 5 years, okay, cool. Yeah. If I'm passionate about it, I'll put 5 years in it, because it's the process, it's not the product.
Absolutely.
But when you're excited about both, yes, I'm excited about the product of being really good at something eventually, but I also enjoy the journey. I enjoy the process of it and all that stuff. So you're getting to do what you love to do and get better at it time after time after time. And, there's a empowering feeling when you realize that most people won't. And then, so, they say most people won't do anything for more than like 2 to 3 years. Like, they start something 2 to 3 years, they switch. But they also, there's a lot of evidence that says it takes 10 years to become masterful or high level or elite at something. So you start doing the math and you're like, well, 3x, 3 times, 3 generations of people will come through that process. So you have to survive 3 generations. But the good part is you really only have to survive 1 generation at a time. It's not, you don't have to fight the world. You just have to fight one guy at a time.
Yeah.
Because, so yeah, it's your first year, you're fighting all the other people from year 1 to 3. Well, your 4th year, you're generally fighting first through third year level people in your fourth through sixth year. Well, then in your seventh year, you're fighting 1 through 3 level people in your seventh through ninth year. And so like you just kind of keep pulling ahead of the group.
Yeah.
And there's a few people that give it the all 10 years or whatever, but it's really, really rare. Yeah. And that's kind of what we talk about in Sorinex Outdoors, like the thin air, deep water. The thin air is the air keeps getting thinner and thinner the higher you go up that hill. And only very interesting generally and extraordinary people are at that 10-year mark up at the top of the mountain. Like, but what I found is, if not even the same actual people, the same type of person is always at the top. And you'll see people like, man, they're killing it. And you're like, oh, that guy was killing it at that top of the mountain also. The same guy I ran into at that top of the mountain. You're like, oh, right. It's those type of people that continually, they'll do the 10 years standing on their head. You look at some of the, stories in the Bible, like, guy wants to marry this girl and the dad says, come back in 7 years. It's like, okay, who's willing to wait 7 years for the love of your life? And if he's like, yeah, sure, I'll work for you for 7 years, then I'll ask your daughter out. It's like, man, that's going to be a hard dude to beat.
Yeah.
Because it's going to really not be that interesting after about 6 months.
Yeah. It's funny how much we've changed as a society. Like you think of like even like, I'm 45 and like, I think of like the things that like my dad went through and like we went through as kids. And then you look of like this younger generation, like I have a business too. And I look at like these young guys that are in their 20s and like how they were raised and coming up. And I'm just like, oh my God, we're doomed. Right. And like, I look at my kids now and I'm like, man, I don't know if like, sometimes it's funny, like I'll get a little bit, have consternation in my head. I'm like, man, am I being too hard on these kids? But then I'm like, well, you know what? Like my dad, his favorite word was suck it up or get over it. Right. And I tell my kids that I have 2 boys, 12 and 8, just turned 8. And then I have a 10-year-old daughter as well. And like with the boys,
there's exact kids and exact ages I have. So yes.
Oh, right on. Yeah. And it's like, I'm definitely a little harder on the boys than I am with my daughter. Obviously, I do treat her a little differently, but I still try to be, you're going to have problems in life. Like this isn't like you have to learn to overcome them. And like my boys are always like, I'm just telling them the same thing. And they're like, suck it up, get over it. Right. You fall down, get up. Like nobody's going to pick you up. Like sure. I mean, there's obviously times when you're concerned and you want to go over and help them. And a lot of things in life, I'd like to just go over and just do it for my kids or show them how to do it. But they're never going to appreciate the struggle. And that, like, to be successful in life and business or just anything you do, you have to go through those struggles and you have to learn to get up, be resilient, be tough. And like, I look at like, the young guys that work for me or like some of the friends of like my oldest son. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I often question myself if I'm doing it the wrong way, but then, at a birthday party, you're looking at some of these kids and, they're almost teenagers and they're having hissy fits and stuff. Like, I'm like, no, I definitely think I'm doing it the right way.
Yeah. Oh man, I could have given you that, what you just said, your monologue, I could give you verbatim. So there's no need, but yes, we'll have birthday parties and you're like, wow, this kid showed up with a hoodie on, the hood's pulled in, doesn't make eye contact with anyone. You say, hey, how's it going? So-and-so, they don't look you in the eye, much less shake your hand. It's just like all these things. And then whatever happens and they're going to go cry in the corner and have a hissy fit. You're like, well, that is not acceptable. That is not what we're doing here. So it's kind of funny. My son's, I think it was his 12th birthday. We had a kind of an interesting party. We did baseball, zip line, but then we also had wrestling mats out and we did towel wrestling and boxing.
Oh,
and then you talk about some parents showing up or like, wait, y'all are gonna box? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, we're gonna put gloves on their hands and headsets. And they're like, are there rules? I'm like, yeah, no kicking or biting, no elbows, box, punch each other in the face hard. And and you see these kids like we could do this. I'm like, yeah, let it rip,
Oh, yeah.
And you see like these kids, some of them kind of shied away, but some of them just blossomed like, oh, this is a thing. Like I could actually fight back. And you saw some little kids, like you saw the confidence grow because they now had a voice. They could punch back. They could get aggression out. They could whatever. And you saw kids tearing get hit in the nose because you tear up a little bit, but tearing up and they're just wailing each other, right? Both of them crying because there's so much emotion, right? And they get done and they give each other a handshake and they're like, and they're walking around after they're like, oh, that was awesome. And you see a lot of the parents at first were freaking, and after a while they're like, this is great.
Yeah,
Like,
therapy.
actually, because I'm like, a 12-year-old kid can't punch another one hard enough with 16-ounce gloves to hurt him. Like, it's going to be fine. But man, it was an interesting thing. Well, especially when they showed up at the house night and I made all the parents sign a waiver. They're like, "You're signing waivers for your birthday?" I'm like, "Yeah, man.
Well, these are times, man. You need to do that. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, it's weird. So it was pretty funny. And then they did towel wrestling, and so we would go back and forth with the whole deal. So I agree, man. Kids need to. I think Jordan Peterson said they need to do dangerous things safely. And,
oh yeah, man. And like we did the same. Like when we were kids, we used to put our hockey helmets on and hockey gloves, and we'd go at it. And like, man,
sure.
I mean,
well, that's the sport. I don't even know if you actually use a puck at any point. I think y'all just fight.
Yeah, but like kids these days, and like especially in like it seems like where masculinity is almost frowned upon, and it's like, okay, that's all fine and dandy till the lights go out or someone's breaking in your home and you need a man in the house, right? And like you don't like my kids, and like I don't want to raise them like my boys. I want them to grow up to be men. I take them in the bush. Like all my kids have been, even my daughter. I had my daughter in a backpack when she was 18 months old. I exposed them to these things where there's challenges in life, and like my son Wyatt, he's the 12-year-old, and like I take him out, and my wife doesn't question me much, but she's like, "Isn't that a little dangerous?" I'm like, "Well, it's yeah, a little dangerous, right? We're out in the woods and like maybe spending an overnight in a tent, and like we get into some maybe people would perceive it as precarious situations, but I've been in, I started going in the bush when I was young. You like grew up in northern British Columbia, so it was like your backyard was the bush, right?
Right. Yeah. You don't go outside if you don't get in the bush. Like,
yeah, exactly. And there was predators, there was bears, wolves, and all that stuff around us. And like our parents never, it was just part of life, right? And like you grow up, you go through these hard things, and then you grow up and you're able to deal with something when you get to become a man or an adult, a man or a woman. Like life's not all rainbows and butterflies. You're going to get to a certain point where it's like, yeah, nobody gives a shit, right? And people, you're going to be based on the work you do and the effort you put into it, and that's it. Like life's not always fair.
Yeah, and every day is filled with micro traumas, right? All these, and how your resilience or how your mindset determines if it's a micro trauma or a trauma. If and that's the people who get used to it their whole life. It's like, some stuff happened. Well, okay, how you handling it? Great, let's move on. It's either something that happened today that's a side note at dinner, or it's something that derailed you for the entire day, week, month, or life, and it's just all stressors aren't created equal, but you could handle them a similar way. I think, I had something pop off yesterday that could have been really, really, really bad. That was only very bad. And I was talking to one of my internal dudes, and thankfully he and I both have a weird, I would say it's an ability, but like generally if something crazy emergency happens, like I don't know if it's a coping mechanism, but I kind of like downshift into I'll talk quieter, I'll be quieter, I get really, really stoic about everything. And then I grieve later, or I'll like and I'm not saying I'm like some badass or whatever, but I've just kind of noticed it's like, oh, why do I almost strangely sound insensitive? Because I even hear I'm like, man, like that was kind of insensitive or whatever. I'm like, oh, right. I was still trying to figure out information so we could actually make choices on how to make this the best situation possible, save anything that is still savable. And because right now isn't the time to cry about it or to grieve or to whatever, because hey, there's still some seconds left in the ball game. Like let's solve this. And I don't know. Maybe it kind of boils down to I think as a younger man, not wanting to be seen as weak or to be seen as a bother. To my dad, who's very masculine, and it's just like you bring up things that are kind of weak, and you don't want the like that spotlight, like, hey, why did you say that? Why are you overly acting emotional about that? And so it was kind of like when something would happen, it was almost like if you fell on a trail or did something, instead of crying, you would like suck it up as fast as you could and like run up the trail faster. So you're kind of by yourself. So if you can wipe off the blood or whatever, so like no one gets to see weakness. And I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. I just know it was kind of like what eventually happened.
Yeah, and it, like I remember being young and like you think of like just like badly cutting your finger, something as simple as that. I never ran to mom. I didn't want to bug her with that because
Right.
like first of all, she would have been like, well, is it still attached? Yeah, well, that's fine.
And she might take your knife away.
Yeah, exactly.
No one
So
wants that.
no, you throw a little electrical tape on it and you're good to go. You can keep playing. And yeah, man, I agree 100%.
But how
I
do we
think a
teach
lot,
our kids that?
yeah, well, that's the tough thing. And I think like the fitness, I think is a great avenue for it. And I think,
Right.
you know, it builds mental toughness and like when you don't want to do things. I remember like my oldest son, he turned 10 and I got him into just doing like being a little bit more physically active. That's right when like we were going through COVID then, you know, all the sports were shut down. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? You're going to have to start coming downstairs and you're going to start working out with me. And it's going to start with you just walking on the treadmill. Right. And then every day you're going to start at 1 kilometer and then you're going to go 1.1. And he hated it. He absolutely hated it, but I made him do it. Right. And then over time, he just developed a passion for it. Right. And like, he started to slowly develop when you do things you don't want to do, you develop a mental toughness. When you do things you hate to do, when you do things that are uncomfortable, this is when you develop your mental toughness. And I think it's important to put our kids through that kind of stuff, like not put them through it, but like just expose them to it. Yep. And, you know, I'm doing the same thing with my daughter now. She's 10 and we go on the treadmill and she hates it, right? She absolutely hates it. But hey, this is a big part of growing up. Like you have to do things you don't like to do because unfortunately life's going to throw things at you that you don't want to do them, but you have to do them. And that's just part of it. And the more you get exposed to these things now, I think you become like our generation, whereas like you can, if somebody throws a curveball out, you can deal with it. You just don't curl up in a ball and hide away from it. You just, you know, you take it on the chin.
We're the unoffendable generation.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You know, it's not to like puff our chest out, but I mean, heck, even if it was the movies or the comedy or oh my gosh, like, you know, I'm not necessarily condoning it, but like I think about like the micro traumas that and you and I and many people endured, and my life wasn't bad by any stretch, but there's these little micro traumas that happen. You're like, oh yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Fine. I could focus keep the main thing on the main thing because I'm not, you know, overly concerned about, you know, it's just like, you know, people crying about the rain. Like the rain isn't out to get you. It's just raining.
Yeah.
Like it's okay. Like it's just raining. You're out there. Like be okay with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to do these things as you're young, because I remember being a young man and I used to go commercial fishing, and that was, you know, it was either that or logging, and I did them both. And it's like, well,
not the two hardest things you can do.
But you do these extremely hard things. When you do something that's really, really hard and it challenges you mentally, physically, like doing that crab fishing, we were up for 30 hours and it's really physically demanding, and you're on the West Coast and you got 35-foot waves, and like you go through, endure these things. Everything else that seems challenging to some people, if you've been through hard things in your life, these little things, they're not so bad, right? And if you've like, I think as Joe Rogan said, the hardest thing you've ever done in your life is the hardest thing you've ever done, right? You know,
good way to put it. Yeah.
If you don't go through hard things, you're never going to be able to build a tolerance to them. And I think with our kids, especially, like if we just shelter them from that, especially at young ages, like, oh, they're too young for that. Like my dad never said that. You think he would ever say, oh, you're too young for that? You're too young to go cut the grass or take out the garbage, or like, you know, It was like, you do it. It's not, I'm not asking you, you just go do it.
Yeah. My mom, she's very independent too, but sometimes she'd get on my dad about some of the stuff he'd exposed me to stressor wise as a youngster. And, you know, but my dad was kind of that, you know, never too young kind of mentality, you know, which hey, it paid off in many ways. I'm trying to be more like that, and I think just we all get softer as we, you know, more success or more whatever. It's coming. I'm sure you've probably read the book The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter.
No, I haven't, but
I will. If you get a chance, it's a great book. But it's like the human body, the human mind is always looking to create more comfort And it's built right in, right? Like, okay, you're cold, right? Say if you're cold, well, you'll put a jacket on. Well, I mean, you're trying to make yourself more comfortable. If you go outside and it's raining, you'll go under a tree. You'll start a fire. Like we always are, our gearing is to always make ourselves in a, advantageous position, right? Because it's less stress on the system. Unfortunately, what happens is by continually always looking for more comfort or designing our lives around more comfort, not only do we become softer and softer, we become less and less capable. The weird part is, from what the book was talking about, which I somewhat agree, is you become less and less happy because there are not the ups and downs in life, which, if everything is up here, then the worst thing that's ever happened is like right here. But if there's a down here, or your job that you did was a commercial crab fisherman, from what I understand, is one of the most dangerous jobs on the planet, probably one of the most difficult, I would guess. If that's like what you've done for work, like everything else is up here. Like everything else is like, oh, I gotta drive a bus. This is great. I'm inside. I got this cushy seat. It's air conditioning. I'm doing this a lot. I'm opening doors. Like this is
yeah. And it's funny. It's funny because that's true. And like I've got I'm in construction now. I'm a bricklayer down here, and I have these young guys that work for me. And I mean, masonry is a hard job, but it's not overly hard. I mean, it's it's just repetitive. And these young guys are like, "Oh my God, this is so hard." And you're like, "Man, this isn't even like you should go do a hard job. Then when you come back to this, it's going to seem really easy." And it's interesting the trajectory we're going now. And like I was saying, I try to steer my kids in somewhat of the opposite way. So hopefully we'll see how that goes in today's society.
Makes me want to have my kids do more yard work with me. I had a tree fall down. I cut it up the other day, and I never got around to getting all the logs moved. So I know what they're doing today.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's, man, that's great for them. It's good. I mean, and it's funny. Like I think back on like, I think of the stuff I did with my dad, and it's like, I don't remember him taking me to like a hockey game or doing anything like that. I remember going hunting with him. And I remember when he used to take me to work on Saturdays, and he was a truck driver and he hauled trailers and stuff. And I'd have to unhook and hook the trailers up being 10 years old. And like my mom being like, I don't know if you should be doing that. And like, I remember those things, right? I don't remember watching TV with him. I mean, we didn't have a TV, I think, till I was like 9 or 10 years old, but I don't remember any of that. I just remember doing these hard and exciting, hunting and stuff like that, fishing with him. And, a lot of people today would classify that as, too dangerous to expose your kids to. And it's like, man, like, I don't know. It's, we'll see how this all turns out, I guess. And when our kids are our age, and, and they're more like we are now, and this, the kids who aren't are the complete opposite.
Yeah, Ryan Mickler was talking about that years ago, or at Order of Man, and someone asked him, they said, well, are you worried about your kids growing up in today's world? And he had a great answer, which I totally agree. He goes, no, he goes, based on what I'm stressing my kids and teaching them, they're going to run the world. He goes, because I see the competition. I was just like, you know what? Like, that's a good way to put it. He's like, my kids are doing hard stuff and I'm exposing them to hard stuff, and everyone else isn't. Because let's be honest, you want a cooperative world in some ways, but the world is competitive. This is a game we're all playing. And the ones who figure out the game quicker and dynamically could think and dynamically could act and get inside the OODA loop of the world, they're the ones who generally succeed. Period. There's not enough. I hate to say it. There's not enough for everybody if your level of expectation is up here. So it is a competition. Learn the job, learn the game the fastest. And I was talking to someone, I've said it a couple podcasts. I think I was sitting in a deer stand one day and I was like, okay, why is it that you see, 4-point bucks and 4-pointers, as in literally 4 points, not like 4-on-4 and eye guards and what we would call 10-pointers. But I was like, why do you see these little 4s and 6s all the time, but you don't see the 10s and 12s and stuff? And I was like, well, as soon as a 4 is, no one is shooting when they're walking across the field, or less people. If a 10-pointer walks across the field, he's getting shot at. Just unless you're a freakazoid that you're going after uber giants, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, the game is different for the big ones. So the ones that survive to get really big, is it were they genetically predisposed to get really big? I'm like, well, no, not necessarily, because if they were genetically predisposed to get really big when they were 2 years old, they would have got shot crossing that same field. So I kind of boiled it down to the bigger deer are the ones who figured out the game the first, like the soonest. The ones that at 1 and 2 years old went, hold on a minute, this place smells like people. I see a car over there. I heard shots. And when they're a 4-pointer, they just decide that walking across the field in the daytime is no longer an option. Yeah. And then they go in the dark, deep places in the woods, and then they grow to be the 10, 12, 14 pointers because they figured out the game. They were like, got it. I don't need to be shot at to figure out this game. And I look at it with people, the people that figure it out the earliest have the longest running room of knowing the rules to the game and strategy of the game. Yeah. And man, but then conversely, I see people that continually have problems in life and they're 40 years old. And I'm like, are you not watching the game? Like, do you not see how this works?
Yeah.
And it's bad decisions being made, immature decisions being made, short-term dopamine hit decisions being made. But I still boil that down to you're not paying attention to the game nor learning how to play it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how we got off on that big long tangent, but I believe that part of the goal is teaching our kids how to play the game.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, like those big bucks, they don't get to be big bucks for no reason, right? And it's like when we grew, like I look at these young guys today, man, you guys have every opportunity to take over because nobody's working hard. All you have to do is work a little bit hard. When I grew up, everybody was working really hard, but they just didn't have the focus or the discipline they needed long term. Like we were talking about before, they had short-term goals. They didn't set like, it's not where I want to be next year. It's where I want to be in 10 years from now. Not where I want to be when I'm 23, where I want to be when I'm 35, where I want to be when I'm 45. Yeah. They just didn't have that vision.
Wrong in reality.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Looking back on it now, well, yeah, exactly. It's a snap of the fingers. But like I look at these young kids, I'm like, man, if you guys are just willing to do a little bit of work, you guys can take over because nobody else your age is doing any work at all. They're all looking for somebody to give it to them.
The gold mine is so open. It's like the barrier of entry of success has never been lower. Yeah. And it's still not being achieved. And a couple of people are getting it, but very few.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Few. There is guys and gals out there that are, they get it and they're going after it. But you can see that, it shows in the accolades they're getting.
Yeah. So and also the wealth disparity starts polarizing because then you've got the guys or girls who figured it out at 20 and they're still in the workplace at 60. So they've just been accumulating like for 40 years and they like, oh, I'm an NFL veteran. I get this game. Yeah. And I still got the body for it. I'm just going to keep setting records because you guys aren't knocking me out of the game yet. And then you get further and further apart. And unfortunately it creates the haves and the have-nots because the guys and gals who are killing it don't want to relinquish their spot. Because why should they?
Yeah, they're like, they earned it.
They earned it. We have experience that we got this and that. And so you see those guys are just continue to crush. And then the people who don't figure it out, they continue to go the opposite direction because they continue to make poor choices and poor choices begat poor choices. And unfortunately, that's where I believe you get this big disparity between classes per se. Yeah. And the sucky part is of course, there's genetics and there's some other things associated with it, but for the most part I've seen some really, really dumb people get really, really successful. I would say dumb, low intelligence, a lot of times high EQ, emotional quotient. They know how to deal with people and they got big balls. Yeah. And what I've noticed is like if you could work hard, have a lot of confidence and know how to talk to people, I don't care if you know how to do algebra. I don't care if you know how to do chemistry. It doesn't matter because that person is probably going to be doing pretty well in life by 30.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And if you work hard, it doesn't matter what you do. If you love to do, and I tell my kids, I'm like, you guys need to find something. If you want to be successful, find something you love to do, find something you're passionate about it, and just work hard. Outwork everybody else, and you'll be a millionaire. And that's like, the recipe is super simple. I mean, don't be afraid to fail.
Yep.
You know, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail more times than you succeed. Just accept it, learn from it, and just move on. And and just continue. Like, consistency compounds, man. You keep working at it day in, day out. Don't take a day off. And then eventually you don't even want to take a day off. You just want to keep grinding. And then, 10, 20 years later, you're like, oh wow, like, that happened.
Yeah. You take a day off when you have to, when
Yeah.
you just can't go anymore. Then you're like, all right, I need to take a self-help day or self-check day just because I'm running thin. But you're not like, I don't look forward necessarily to days off.
Yeah.
Like, unless it's needed. It's not like, oh, I don't have to work tomorrow. It's like, well, I like doing what I'm doing. Yeah, could I probably stand sleeping an hour or two more? Yeah, probably. Then it's probably a good idea. Maybe I'll intentionally do that tomorrow. I was talking to one of my buddies earlier today. He's like, both of us on Saturday by 2:00 p.m., if we've tried to rest, we're super restless and we got to go figure out something to like put points on the board. It was 2:00 this past Saturday, and all of a sudden I'm outside chainsawing stumps, and all of a sudden I'm like, because they needed to get done, and I'm going to go until the chainsaw runs out of gas, and that at least that's a one little step ahead.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I find it so, like, with my kids and like the business, obviously, as you know, it takes a lot of your time, and then I train a lot. And then, not as my kids get older, they have more needs. They're all into these extracurricular activities. And it's just like the biggest currency is your time, right? And you only have so many hours in a day. And it's like, I try really hard, and I really struggle with like my three kids as they're getting older, and as I still want to do the things I love to do, which is train and hunt and do all this stuff. And like, not just checking things off the list, like eating dinner at the dinner table, actually being involved in a conversation we have at the dinner table, not just thinking, okay, what purchase orders do I have to do for tomorrow? Or like, what's my workout going to be? How many kilometers am I going to be able to run? Or like, what do we have to do after dinner? And then what time do I have to get to bed? And like, blah, 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 blah. Right. And it's like, actually it's story time, actually being present or talking to my kids, and like just being involved with that. It's like, it's constantly, and not looking at my phone to do something on, just for the podcast or on Instagram or something like that. Actually being engaged and present with my kids is like, that for me is like a constant. And like, it just never seems to, it's just something I'm constantly working at constantly. Like, it's not like, never seem to get it figured out. I don't know about you, but man, it's just
I can't. No, that is the biggest stressor for me. Yeah, exactly. Same thing. It's just, I feel like I'm constantly letting people down because I have to let someone down to do anything.
Yeah.
If I'm going to, go spend time with my kids more, I'm letting my work down. If I'm letting my work down, or if I'm going after the work really hard, I'm letting, my kids or my family or my social group, or even at times myself. It's like, hey, I want to get some time outside to like reframe my mind and hunt and do the thing I'm passionate about. And it's like, well, I got to do this, 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 and this. And then, for me, I'll be honest, like sometimes that resentment grows. You're like, man, like I work so hard and I have to like just work so hard. Like like I want to go out and elk hunt or go do something that I'm super passionate about but I know if I go do that, I'm going to let down someone else.
Yeah.
I'm going to let my wife, my kids, my something. So yeah, it always boils down to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily for me, and I'm sure your wife's the same, she's a rock star. She knows, like, okay, there's a lot on the table, and she does really good at like taking stuff off of my plate and putting it onto hers. And obviously, like, I look at her plate, I'm like, that thing is always full. Like, that's always heaping. It's falling over the edges. And I look at mine and I'm like, okay, maybe I can do a little bit more. I could do this. I could do that. Right. Yeah. So it's a balancing act, man.
Way. Yeah. But having good wives it's one of the biggest things you could possibly have. Like I told her last night, I was like, just thank you for being who you are. She's like, what do you mean? I go, what I've seen with people, men and women, generally men, because that's who I talk to, is picking the wrong wife is one of the biggest, one of the biggest mistakes you could possibly make, or not just wife, but a spouse. There's work ethic, there's integrity, whatever. But one of the biggies is you pick the wrong person to be yoked to, and man, that could spin some things in wild and unpredictable paths. So that I see time and time again. That's always one of the variables. You rarely see someone that's like, oh, my family life is going absolutely amazing. I'm married to an awesome woman. We're super supportive of one another. We have our priorities straight. Well, my life is in disarray. Like you never hear that, right? You never hear that. And I'm super depressed. Like that doesn't generally occur. I have a
definitely
problem. Like, no, that's never the case if all this other stuff is taken care of.
Yeah, if your shit at home is locked down, then usually everything else just sort of follows suit. I mean, obviously we have twists and turns along the way, but if your shit at home is locked down, everything else just seems to run smoother. And like business is a big part of that. And like when you own a business, it's basically part of your life.
Of course.
And so, yeah, man, choosing the right spouse. Yeah. And luckily, I mean, I chose her, she was lucky enough to have, or I was lucky enough to have her. And, it's been great, but I mean, I couldn't imagine, going through the headaches. And I know some guys who they picked the wrong woman, man. And it's just like, life is just like, they're same age as me. And I've been friends with these people for, 30 plus years. And they're just like, man, I'm just going through the motions. And I'm like, man, I'm so lucky. I'm not going through
and
that.
Sometimes you have to turn the mirror on yourself and say,
oh
like,
yeah, 100%.
Am I the right man? Like, is there still a lot of growth that I could do, or am I leaving something on the table and I could push blame on her as much as I want? But in reality, like, does she truly have a prize here, or is there a lot of growth that I could do that maybe she would meet me halfway if that was the case?
Yeah, 100%. And like you talk to a lot of these guys and they're like, well, what did you do Friday after work? Well, I sat around, drank beers with the guys till 6 o'clock. I'm like, if you had one beer and then you went home and maybe helped clean up the entranceway or cut the grass in the back, or just, went home and did the dishes or helped out with the laundry or picked the kids up from soccer, like you said, you meet them halfway. I mean, it's not always about you. I mean, sometimes, yes, there is instances where that happens, but yeah, I mean, you can't always, you got to look inside in the mirror sometimes and take, responsibility. A lot of these things that when your life isn't going well, it's a reflection on what you're doing, not what other people are doing that are involved in your life.
Yeah. And being honest about it. I talked to a guy one time. He's like, my wife and I are having problems. She doesn't trust me. I was like, what's going on? Well, she always looking at my phone, wondering if I'm talking to other girls. I was like, well, does she have any reason to believe that you are? And he's like, well, yeah. And I go, I'm taking crazy pills. Like,
yeah.
How long did that argument take to figure out? Like,
yeah, no shit.
I don't know what to say, man. Like, clean up on aisle 5, dude. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
I'm kind of speechless at this point, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's simple math, right? Yeah. I think so anyway.
There's not a lot of really big surprises in this world.
No, there isn't, man. It's pretty simple. Yeah.
It strangely is. And that goes back to like figuring out the game quickly. Once you kind of realize, I can imagine guys that play hockey or football or whatever that get that like sixth sense. They just know where the puck is going to be, or they know where the play is going to be. It's like, gosh, how sweet would it be to start figuring out life to that point where you're like, okay, I see what's coming. Like I get, yeah, okay, sidestep this. Okay, good. Let's move on. Man, that's kind of my goal. That's where I want to be, is like, because then I got more brain power and time to spend with all the people I love instead of freaking fighting uphill every day.
Yeah, for sure, man. I agree. It's it seems like some days you feel like you're just constantly every day working uphill, and it's like, man, is this hell ever gonna plateau, or is it like it's just constantly uphill for the rest of my life? And like, but then you look at guys that are older than me, and I know a lot of guys in the trades and stuff, and they've had really successful businesses, and they're like, yeah, man, eventually you're going to get to a point where it's like it'll never be on autopilot, but the road will be smoother. You'll learn to look at things differently. Your kids will get older. You'll have more time. You'll actually miss the days when life was a little bit hectic, and it just things get simple.
I do kind of look forward to the days where life isn't hectic. That does sound. I'd like to play that game for a minute or two. That sounds pretty fun.
Yeah,
you're like, oh,
it's hard though.
It's not crazy. I'm like, ah.
Yeah, but when you do things and you build up things that are so, like, you have a lifetime of craziness, and then all of a sudden it's taken away. It's like, it's almost like where the football's taken away from the quarterback. It's like, man, like, now what?
Yeah, the empty nest syndrome. It's kind of, a buddy of mine, Luke Day, strength coach from South Carolina. This is the shirt that he made. It's called Struggle Well. And the whole point of it is like, the whole point in life is, well, we're all going to have struggles at every level, king or pauper. You're going to have struggles struggles at some point, and it's not getting away from struggles. It's realizing you're always going to have struggles. No matter how successful you are, there will just be another struggle. It'll be different than the other guy's struggle or your former self struggle. But the goal in life is just to learn to struggle well. Like, just do it well. Just play the game well. And it's such an interesting and powerful message. I love it because, something goes down. You're like, it's like, I knew this was going to happen. Life is a struggle. Like, how do I play the game? It's my move now for the chess piece. Well, how do I play this?
Yeah.
And play the game well.
Yeah, and I think that like how we grew up and how we're raising our kids, a lot of that stems from that, and like being able to adapt and to just struggle well, right? Rather than struggle and then die. You
Right.
can
struggle, and you can't ever get out. And you're like, hold on, man. Like,
like just
board at some point.
Build up the tolerance when you're young, and then you always, things are like in life, it's going to be a little bit hard, and it's like I was saying, you do hard things when you're young, and then everything seems a little easier. But then obviously, that doesn't compare to like things you go through and things you experience as a father or as a business owner, right? Those are different types of struggles. They're not as physically demanding as the other struggles, but they're still, there's still struggles and going through that stuff. And like, we went through a lot of struggles with our youngest being born. He was in the children's hospital right from the get-go. He was in there for quite a while there. The doctors basically called me and they said, you better come down here because it might be the last chance you get to see your son. And you're like, you just, a flood of emotions go through you, right? And then you're like, it's nothing you can ever explain or, explain to somebody what that experience is like. But then you go through that, and like, he's a super strong kid. Mom was awesome. Doctors were great. And like, he powered through it. Right now, look at him, he's 8 years old and he's a freaking wrecking ball, right? He's strong as hell. And like, I learned a lot from that, and it's just like dealing with, as I get older, unfortunately, as we get older, the older people in front of us, they start to fall off, right? And that's just a part of life. And like, you have to go through all that stuff. Like, we have to experience it sometime in life. Unfortunately, it's the clock's going to run out on all of us, but just embrace it, and enjoy the time we have with each other, enjoy the time with your kids while they're kids, and just do our best and raising them and just teaching them to deal with the same, hey, this is going to happen at some time in your life. You're going to have to learn to deal with it. And that's a great shirt. Like you say, struggle well, because these are all struggles that we're going to have to go through in life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually the group of kids that we were training at our house during the summer. So like, all the kids would come over, and a couple of the dads, and we would do little training, squat, push, pull, hinge, like real little stuff, just basic gross motor skills. And we called the group the Strugglers. And it was like, they didn't get a cool name. The name was the Strugglers. And then one of the kids, cool name. They got a little bit better. And the one guy was like, hey, like, can we change our name? Like, now that we kind of like leveled up, like the Almost Theirs or the something like that. And I was laughing. I was like, this kid's 11 years old and it's talking about almost being there. And I had a little lesson with him. I was like, guys, like, that's the point of this. Like, I'm 47 years old and I'm a struggler. You're 8 years old. You're a struggler. Like, all of us have to just eat the fact that we're going to struggle. Yeah. The point of it is to struggle well, like, learn to struggle now. And so it's not a surprise when the rain comes later in life. And so there was kind of like a little lesson that we had with him. I said, all right, kids, dads, everybody, who thinks or was told that one day you'll meet the perfect girl, you'll marry the perfect girl, you'll get the perfect job, and life will be happily ever after? Like, all the kids raise their hand and all the dads raise their hand. I was like, it's a lie. It's a lie. There is no happily ever after. There's struggles every day, no matter what stage you are. Like, and as soon as you understand that and understand how to be resilient enough to take that and learn the game, well, then life's okay. You're like, got it. Okay, it's going to suck at times. Perfect. Track it. Yeah. But as soon as you can't ever absorb that and metabolize the fact that there are going to be micro traumas and audacity of people to do things to you, you're going to be surprised every time it happens and have an emotional response. Oh my gosh, like, this is going to be a roller coaster of a life. Yeah. So struggle well.
Love it, man. Well, dude, I want to thank you for hopping on the show. You know, it's great. Everybody, I mean, all my listeners are already going to know about who you are and Sorinex and Sorinex Outdoors and all that stuff. So I didn't think we really need to get into that, but it's just great to talk to guys like you and to, you know, pick apart their brain and really get inside the mindset of guys like yourself. So I really enjoyed the conversation, buddy.
Thank you. Likewise, Kevin, man. I hope you keep doing what you're doing. You and I are very aligned. I'd love to get more field notes from you and have you down in South Carolina sometime.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. Thanks, man. Take care.
See you.
Gear up for the hunt and learn from the best with Deer and Deer Hunting Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV. Tune in every week for expert hunting tips and unforgettable moments in the field. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.